This video is sponsored by Hook Theory. Today we're going to go through 15 facts you didn't know about classic songs, starting with a Radiohead song. Did you know that Radiohead's Paranoid Android is inspired by the classic sci-fi comedy Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams? Of course, the song's title comes from Marvin the Paranoid Android, who is a depressed robot in Hitchhiker's Guide. But the references don't stop there. The lyric, "You will be fast against the wall," is a reference to a line from Hitchhiker's Guide.
A bunch of mindless jerks who'll be the first against the wall when the revolution comes.
And even the album's title, OK Computer, is a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide. On several occasions in Hitchhiker's Guide, when a character wants to talk to the spaceship's computer, they get its attention by saying, "OK Computer."
OK computer, I want full manual control now.
You might have heard before that Blur's Song 2 began as a sort of joke parody of Nirvana, before ironically going on to becoming a big hit song. But what you might not have known is that Song 2's opening drum beat is actually impossible for a single drummer to play. This is because the beat was recorded by two people playing the kit at the same time. Dave Rowntree, Blur's drummer, is playing this beat, and Graham Coxon, the band's guitarist, is adding eighth notes on the drum's rim and then hitting the toms. Did you know that All You Need Is Love by the Beatles quotes 6 other songs during its less than 4-minute runtime? Of course, the song proudly kicks off with a bit of La Marseillaise, the French national anthem. But it's during the song's outro where the other 5 references can be heard. At 2 minutes and 53 seconds, we get this snippet of Bach's 2-part invention number 8 played on the horns. Shortly after, we hear the melody from Glenn Miller's In the Mood, also played on the horns. We then get perhaps the 2 most subtle references at the same time. John briefly sings the word yesterday as a small reference to the Beatles' classic song, but just after that, the strings start playing the melody of the old folk tune Greensleeves. And finally, Paul closes the song by singing She Loves You as a nod to the band's earlier hit. If you listen to the song Every Day by Buddy Holly and the Crickets, you won't hear drums. However, the band's drummer did perform on this record. He's just not playing his usual drum kit. Instead, he's percussively playing his own knees to provide the simple but effective percussion part we hear on the record.
Every day it's a getting closer, going faster.
I'm sure you recognise this song. Mandy, made famous by Barry Manilow. But the original version of the song was actually about a woman called Brandy, not Mandy. The original Brandy version was written and sung by Scott English. The reason Manilow changed the lyric to Mandy for his version is because by the time he chose to cover the song in 1974, the song Brandy You're a Fine Gal by Lookingglass had come out. So to avoid confusion with that song, Manilow made the subtle lyrical change from Brandy to Mandy. You've probably listened to Hounds of Love by Kate Bush before, but have you ever wondered what that voice sample at the beginning is?
It's in the trees. It's coming.
When I was a child.
Well, it's a clip of dialogue taken from the 1957 horror film Night of the Demon.
It's in the trees. It's coming. The demon! It's coming! No!
The iconic fuzz guitar riff at the beginning of Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones is the first example of fuzz distortion in a hit song. Keith Richards achieved the fuzz effect using the recently released Maestro FZ1 fuzz tone pedal, which was the first commercially available fuzz pedal. But interestingly, initially Richards didn't intend the now legendary fuzz guitar line to be used on the actual record. He was using the fuzz effect as a placeholder for a riff that he imagined would later be played by horns. Of course, in the end, they decided to keep the fuzz tone for the now classic riff. Although we can actually hear what Satisfaction could have sounded like with the riff played on horns by listening to Otis Redding's cover version of the song that came out the same year as the original. Did you know that Foo Fighters' 1997 classic Everlong features a female backing vocal that was recorded over the phone? Today, it's not unusual for a musician to contribute to a track remotely, but in 1997 it was far less practical to do, particularly as Everlong was recorded to tape. Dave Grohl wrote Everlong about his relationship with Louise Post, who was the singer of the band Veruca Salt. He therefore wanted Louise to sing a BV on the track, but at the time she wasn't around. So, as engineer Bradley Cook explains in this clip, they decided to record her vocal over the phone.
She was in Chicago, and we're in Hollywood at Grandmasters, so...
You did it on a phone?
Yeah, we did phone. So we had the, her monitor was the telephone next to the NS10 in the control room.
Yeah.
And then we called her on the other line. We recorded her on the other phone with probably an 87 or something, I would imagine.
So she's hearing through a phone da, 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 on the guitar riff, and she's singing along with it, and you're recording it back on.
That's right. She's aping the guitar riff. Yeah. Wow, it's crazy to hear this. And there's, it's all tape, so she had to get it right. There's no moving anything around,
Have you ever wondered what this sound is at the start of the song The Bends by Radiohead? Well, it's actually a tape recording that Thom Yorke made outside his hotel when the band were touring in America. The sound at the beginning of The Bends comes from this caterwauling mayhem outside this hotel in the States. There was this guy training these 8-year-old kids who were parading up and down with all of these different instruments. The guy had this little microphone on his sweater and was going, "Yeah, keep it up, keep it up." So I ran out and taped it. If you're interested in music theory, then you'll be interested in Hook Theory. Hook Theory offers a whole range of resources for developing your understanding of music theory. For example, their website offers a music theory analysis of over 40,000 songs. They also offer 2 interactive music theory textbooks, which, much like my own videos, teach music theory by using well-known songs to exemplify and explain music theory concepts. On top of this, Hook Theory's HookPad is a great tool that helps you apply music theory concepts in your own songwriting. As you compose, HookPad will make suggestions about potential chord or note choices based on the mode or key that you're in. Did you know that the original version of The Sound of Silence by Simon & Garfunkel was a commercial failure and actually led to the duo splitting up? The original 1965 version of the song, which was actually originally called The Sounds of Silence, was a more basic acoustic arrangement with just voice and acoustic guitar.
Restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone.
After the duo's debut album, Wednesday Morning 3am, was a flop, Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel went separate ways. The following year, though, the song did start to get a little radio play. Noticing this, Simon and Garfunkel producer Tom Wilson decided the track needed a folk rock revamp. Wilson had been producing Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. So after one of the sessions, Wilson asked Dylan's guitarist Al Gagorny and drummer Bobby Gregg to stay behind, and with the addition of second guitarist Vinnie Bell and bassist Bob Bushnell, they overdubbed a Byrds-inspired folk rock arrangement over the top of Simon & Garfunkel's original acoustic track.
In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone.
Wilson then released this revamped version and it became the hit track that we know and love today. The most amazing thing though about this story is that Simon & Garfunkel weren't even informed about this redubbed version. Paul Simon didn't find out about it until he saw The Sound of Silence in the Billboard Hot 100. On listening to the new version of the song, Paul Simon was apparently horrified, particularly due to the moments in the track where the overdubbed band go a bit out of time with the original acoustic performance. Regardless of Simon's disapproval though, the revamped track was what launched the duo to worldwide success. When recording the vocals for David Bowie's classic track Heroes, Producer Tony Visconti wanted to take advantage of the studio's natural reverb, but he only wanted the reverb on the louder parts of the vocal, not the quiet parts. But with only one track left on the tape machine, Visconti had to get inventive with how he recorded it. I'll let Visconti explain.
I wanted the room, but I didn't want it all the time. We only had one track left for the vocal. So I set up a mic in the middle of the room to capture how the sound travels that far, maybe 15, 20 feet. And then I set up a third mic in the rear of the room where it travels the whole length, probably 50 feet. And David was on this end of the room with a close mic in front of him. And I had this technique, we had this ability in those days to put an electronic gate on a audio signal. So I put an electronic gate on the middle microphone and the distant microphone and set them to a specific threshold where if David sings loud enough, he'll open the microphone. If he sings quiet, the microphone won't open and you'll just hear this sound in front of him.
I will be king.
See, there's no reverb on that. And he could hear that in the headphones, and he's working it. So verse 4, if you go to verse 4, now he's working the middle mic and the end mic.
I will be king.
Another Bowie fact that I actually discussed in one of my earliest videos on this channel is that his song Life on Mars was actually written in response to Frank Sinatra's My Way. The song My Way began life as a French song called Comme des Habitudes. At that time in the late 60s, David Bowie was yet to break through into the mainstream and was actually working for a publisher setting English lyrics to foreign language songs. And one of the songs he was tasked to set an English lyric to was this French song, Comme des Habitudes.
And they said, do an English lyric to this. So I wrote this god-awful lyric. Even a Fool Learns to Love, it was called. It was dreadful. God, it's so awful. I sang the lyric to the actual record that they sent me from France. So you hear the actual, there's a tape of me, you can hear, I've seen it on the internet. I mean, it's available. You hear the French song in the background, you hear me singing my lyric over the top of it. It's very funny.
They're funny man, don't let them down. Oh, I dance and prance and be their clown. That time, a happy time, that even a fool learns to love.
However, perhaps not surprisingly, the publisher decided not to go with Bowie's lyric and instead to go with Paul Anka's lyric, which was My Way. And as Bowie explains in this interview, this experience sparked the beginning of what would become Life on Mars.
I was really pissed off. I thought, it should have been my song, So I thought, okay, I'll write my own version. So it's My Way on Mars.
We can see the influence of My Way in the Life on Mars chord progression. Both songs use a very similar descending chord progression idea. Did you know that the song Smile, made famous by Nat King Cole, was written by Charlie Chaplin?
Smile, though your heart is aching.
Smile started life as the instrumental theme for Chaplin's 1936 film Modern Times. "18 years later, John Turner and Geoffrey Parsons added lyrics to Charlie Chaplin's melody and gave the resulting song to Nat King Cole. Did you know that Roy Orbison wrote his classic track Pretty Woman on the tour bus whilst touring the UK with the Beatles in 1963?
Walking down the street, pretty woman, the kind I like.
Remember, we'd be on the tour bus, and Roy would be at the back of the bus. He'd be writing something like Pretty Woman or something. I remember him playing that to us. We said, great song. From this, a little bit of competitiveness would come in, a little bit of competition, because we'd think we've got to write one as good as that.
And the last fact I'll leave you with today is about the song Dancing in the Moonlight. made most famous by King Harvest in 1972. Songwriter Sherman Kelly wanted to write a song that was light-hearted and fun and a celebration of life. But what you can never tell from listening to the song itself is the dark events that led to him wanting to write such a positively minded song.
And it's a happy song, but the reason why you wrote it wasn't happy at all.
Well, no. A bunch of friends and I were running a nightclub in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. And we decided one day to take a schooner from St. Thomas to St. Croix. And my girlfriend and I got very sick going across to St. Croix. And when we got there, I was glad to get on shore, and my friends were fine. They went back out on the boat to spend the night. And Adrian and I said, no, we're not going out there. We see the boat out in the harbor, No, we'll see you tomorrow. But I had forgotten to bring my wallet. I was just out of it. And my girlfriend said, why don't we just camp out on the beach here? So we did. We fell asleep on the beach under a full moon, and that's all I remember clearly. I remember being hit really hard, and 5 guys were attacking us with baseball bats. So I just remember getting hit again and again and then losing consciousness. I found out later from Adrian that the leader raped her. She thought she was going to be raped by the rest of them and maybe killed. And then she said there was this horrible animal noise, this howling. And apparently I saw fit to recover consciousness and attack them. I don't know how I could have. I had one arm dislocated and ribs broken, my face all fractured. But I think I made enough noise to scare them off. Adrian was okay. She's a real survivor, real tough. She was great, but I had a pretty bad headache for a while. I was writing some verse, and I took one of the verses that I wrote and sat at the piano having had a glass or two of wine and wrote Dancing in the Moonlight. And in it, I was just trying to envision a world that was a lot better than the one I had experienced. One in which people were getting along. People weren't fighting. People weren't violent.
If you didn't already know, I'm now regularly streaming over on Twitch, where I'm doing all sorts, including holding Beatles quizzes, listening to your music, improvising at the keyboard, and counting down my favourite songs. So do consider following me on Twitch to stay up to date with when I'm streaming.